I am really excited to share with you all today. The goal is talking about how, as IAs, you can support math instruction. But I just want to say that I'm coming at this as a learner too. I'm not an expert in this field. You all are experts in the role that you have. So I learn from watching you interact with students too. So I hope that you'll keep that in mind as we go through. These are the two areas that we're going to talk about. How you can assist students when you are asked to work one-on-one with a kid, like sort of in a tutoring role, whatever that looks like in your space, and then also ways that you can help when you go into a classroom and are helping whole groups. So those are our two goals, and we're going to work through this agenda. We're going to start with the one-on-one strategies, and then we're going to watch a video where it's me working with a second grader trying the one-on-one strategies, and then we'll talk about it. And then we're going to watch another video where we have a third grader doing a math problem, and we're going to have to talk about what would you do, figuring out how you would help that particular student with what they're working on. And then I have asked one of your colleagues to let me interview them, and so we're going to hear from her wisdom, Miss Eggleston's wisdom. And then at the end, I'll share a couple things from teachers, and if we have time, hopefully we will have some time for questions. So feel free to interrupt and ask questions as we go. That's totally fine. But also know that if you want to write down questions and save them till the end, like kind of, what do I do in this case? Or this happened that I didn't know what to do. We have some time at the end for that. So we're starting off pretending that you get asked by a teacher or someone else to do this kind of thing, that you walk in and the teacher says, can you please help this kid right here with blank? Can you help them with making a pattern? Can you help them with counting to 100? Can you help them with two-digit addition? Whatever it might be, I want you to keep in your mind that that's the situation that we're talking about when a teacher asks you to work one-on-one or maybe one-on-two with a particular student. So here are some things that I typically try to do. You might have a different way that you approach it, but when I get asked to work with a student, and especially if it's not a student that I know what their current level is, here are some things that I do first. So first, I always make sure that I get some more details from the teacher. If the teacher says, for example, can you help this kid with two by two digit addition? Okay, I think to myself, all right, that's like 14 plus 27 or 36 plus 82, that kind of thing. But I'm going to follow up with some questions like, are they regrouping yet? Or we might call it carrying or that kind of thing. I might ask, do they use tools or are you expecting them to do it just on paper with no tools? I might ask, what's the max sum that you want to go to? So for example, like if you add a 2 by 2 plus 2-digit number, you could go only up to 100, where your sum is only 100, or they could have us get a sum bigger than 100. And then the thing that is the most helpful for me when I'm helping a teacher that I haven't spent time in their room is to say, hey, can you do one problem for me so I can see what it looks like in your class? And that's not like coming across like to the teacher, that to me, that doesn't come across like, I don't know how to do this problem. Instead, it comes across like the way the particular algorithm, the exact way that you write things is important to you and the kid. And as the IA, I want to make sure I follow that too. So you're going to watch a video where I was helping somebody in Miss Tatum's class. And I did that. I said, solve this problem for me real quick so I can see what it looks like in your class. And she has them draw a box above the tens place. And she told me that because that's where, when you're regrouping the tens, they put that one up there, that 110 up there. And I was so glad she told me that, because it allowed me to remind her student to let's draw this little box like Miss Tatum does. So ask the teacher for details, and don't, in most cases, I would say they wouldn't take that as frustrating. They would take that as, oh, you want to help them in exactly the way that they need to get the help. I always think it's best to start by saying, hey, can you do one of these for me? Can you solve one of these particular problems, and just watch? We're probably, when you watch a student, nearly at the beginning, they're going to make a mistake. That's okay. Just watch it all the way through, see what happens, so that you can gather what they do know and then what they don't know. And then I think that you, even after you've watched, you might have to ask some clarifying questions. Tell me, go back and ask me about this part. Tell me how you knew that. Show me, there's a lot that you can learn by watching them, especially kids who are using their fingers as a tool or some kind of manipulative, but also there's a lot that goes on in their head that we can't see. So if you take a minute to ask some questions, you might learn a little bit more about what they do know before you just jump into the like, let's fix your misunderstanding. So then my next step, by like watching and then maybe asking some follow-up questions like what was happening here, then my next step is to try to think about what is the thing that they're misunderstanding. Where's the catch up, the hold up, what's the thing that they don't get or they're misapplying or whatever, and then try to zero in right on that particular spot. And if at all possible, I try to take it back to the concrete or the representational stage. So what I mean by that is going back and seeing, are there tools that we can use that will support the kid learning this particular thing? Base 10 blocks, counters, bears, shapes, whatever. So that's the concrete, something that you touch. Or is there a picture that we can we draw? If you are, in the cafeteria trying to help a kid and you're not anywhere close to base 10 blocks, could you draw base 10 blocks, like draw rods and units to represent what you're doing? Because oftentimes if a kid is doing something wrong at the abstract level, just solving a problem, it's because they lack some understanding, and we can get them to catch up on that understanding by taking a couple steps back and looking at the concrete or the representational. And that's language that the teachers have been working on too. Like you might hear them say CRA, concrete, representational, abstract. So it's like take a couple steps back in order to take some steps forward in their understanding, is the idea. So then once you kind of use the tools to reteach or help them through where their catch up, their hookup was, then you want to keep practicing with those tools or those pictures. Don't just go, oh, now you got it, let's go straight back to the number, the naked numbers, right? No, you want to practice some more with the manipulative or the picture and try to make a connection to what they're doing just on paper. And then likely that's all the time you have, right? I know that we don't spend too much time in any one room in a lot of people's cases, but if you have more time, or if you get to work with that student again, then you think about, okay, once they can do it with supported with the tools or supported with the pictures, then you think about, okay, what's the next level of difficulty I need to do? Do I need to try to say, hey, we just did this with tools. Can we do it without? Can we try pictures instead? Or you just drew a picture. Can we now try with no tools and no pictures and you just use the numbers? So taking away some of those supports slowly, or you might end up instead increasing some of the numbers. So like, let's say you were helping in a third grade class and the kid can now do a 2 plus 2 digit number. Maybe you say, let's use our tools and try a 3 digit plus 3 digit number, that kind of thing. So when I sit down to help a kid, these are kind of the steps that I'm trying to think through. And it doesn't always go like this, right? Sometimes something bizarre happens at the beginning, or they know what they're doing. And there's all kinds of things that might come up, but this is what I'm going into to kind of attack the situation first. Some other things to keep in mind is that silence when you're helping a kid can feel really awkward and weird and uncomfortable. And we feel like as teachers, we have to say something to fill up that space, but they need it, right? There are so many times I'm trying to coach myself to like stop talking sometimes when I'm working with a kid, just pause and they just need some time to think through their strategy, right? So if you can kind of coach yourself, wait, say something in your brain to give some wait time. I think you'll know the difference between when they're silent because they are totally stuck or when they're silent because they're thinking. So try to give some wait time when you can. If at all possible, if you can reinforce correct vocabulary, that is super helpful to the kid and to the teacher who's trying to help the kids get the vocabulary. So for example, if we're working on addition and you are able to put in the words addend or sum, that is helping them hear it from one more person from one more place. So if we're talking about like 3 plus 4 equals 7, 3 and 4 are the addends, and 7 is the sum, the answer. So, and sometimes we might say, what's the answer? And then maybe the next time you ask, you might say, what's the sum? So just any opportunity to reinforce that vocabulary that the teachers are using is awesome. The next one is one I have to work on myself, which is choosing the problems that you're going to work on carefully. So sometimes the teacher is going to be like, hey, work on this with them, and you don't have to think about the problems, but sometimes they might say, just work on blank, and you have to think about that. So if you are not like ready yet to think ahead on, is this the kind of problem they need? I would just suggest think, this is a problem I want you to solve. Hold on a second. Let me solve it real fast. Write it down, and then make sure that nothing unexpected comes up. Like maybe they're not regrouping yet with subtraction, and all of a sudden you've written one that accidentally needs regrouping. So solving it ahead of time helps you coach them, but also helps you avoid these uncomfortable moments where you're like, ooh, that was way harder than I thought it should be. Like if you use really weird denominators with fractions or something like that. So thinking, pausing to like make sure you've picked a good problem that you want to try with the kid is better than going into it and then getting to that point where like, oh, I totally should not have picked that problem. So just pause and take it. And then finally, we want to use growth mindset as much as we possibly can. So that is talking about growth mindset means that you work on this focus of effort and how our brains can grow. We can change our ability. A fixed mindset would be someone who just says people are smart or not. And we want to live in that growth mindset space, and we want our kids to be there too. So when we're instructing in math, that looks like making sure that the way that you talk about I'm going to change it. The way that we talk about our ability, and myself included, of math, we want to have a growth mindset about our own ability. So the way this really plays out is if you go into a situation with a kid and you say, math is so hard, I wasn't good at math either, then you're sort of giving them permission to think about themselves as not good at math. And we don't want them to think that, right? We want them to think that they are great at math and they are getting better at math. So instead saying things like, wow, we are working really hard and we are getting it, or making a mistake is okay because we learn from our mistakes. Any kind of change that you can make, even if you don't feel awesome about yourself as a mathematician, right? You are awesome because you do math all day long to do all the, not only your job, but the things you do at home. So trying to talk positively about your math ability is going to impact our kids. Some of you who've been around here know that you've heard me say that speech a lot of times. And so thanks for listening to step off my soapbox. Okay. I know we have some new people, so I wanted to make sure that they understood what I was talking about when I say growth mindset language. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. No one, don't feel afraid or scared or anything. We're gonna work. Watch an example first, okay? So all I want you to do, I'm not going to ask anybody to share their answer. All I want you to do is, if you have paper, or you can do it in your head, I want you to just solve this problem. Think about your favorite way to solve it, whatever that might be. There's no requirement of what you have to use: paper, mental math, whatever. And then just take a minute to think about, what mistakes would you expect a second grader might make or could make on this kind of problem? And I'm going to give us about 60 seconds to solve it and think ahead about the mistakes that could happen. So next, we're going to watch a video where I was working with a student who Miss Tatum said could use some extra help on a 2 plus 2 digit problem, and with regrouping. That was the information that I was given. And you're going to see him working this exact same problem. So now you know what the right answer should be, how you got it, and then be listening for where his mistake was. And I will just tell you, going into this, 2 things. One is that we're going to have a conversation afterwards about what do you notice and what do you wonder. So be thinking, what are you noticing? What are you wondering? And if it's about 4 minutes long, so if you want to write down something that you notice or wonder to share later, that would be awesome. And the second thing is, like, I recorded this for the purpose of this PLC, right? So this was like best case scenario. There's one kid, there's one teacher. I was trying to do all the things. It doesn't always look like this, even when I go to help a kid, right? So keep that in mind, that it's not going to look like this the first time. It's not even going to look like this the 20th time that I do it. I was really trying to model all the things. All right, here we go.
Start with 54 plus 37, and I'd love to see how you solve that problem.
Plus 7 is just bit of 1, and then 5 plus 3, add 3 more.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Add 3 more. 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, so what'd you get?
81.
81. All right, I want to go back and ask you. Well, first of all, I have to give you a compliment because you totally used a tool that we have. Our fingers are a fantastic tool, so I love how you thought about 5 and 3, and then you used your fingers to count that. That was awesome. Can we go back and talk about some of the things you did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me about this step when you added 7 and 4. What'd you do there? What did your brain do to do 7 and 4?
To put a 1, because then if you put 11, it's not gonna nothing.
So did you find out that 7 plus 4 made 11?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 7 plus 4 made 11. And I see that you kept that 1. What happened to that 10 that's part of 11? Not sure? Did it like just sort of disappear? Do you think can we like say poof, it's gone? Not sure. Yeah. So let's try something. Let's see if we use either if we draw this problem, or we could use base 10 blocks and see if we get the same thing as 81. You want to try that? Would you rather do a drawing, or would you rather use blocks? Blocks? Okay. Can you build this first number of 54 for me? Can you get out 54? Okay. So we've built our first addend of 50.
50 and 40.
Yeah. And you know what might help is if we put these 4 over here, just like the 4 ones are on this side of the 50 in our number. Fantastic. Can you build our second addend? Now, when we did your problem, you started by combining the 4 and the 7. Can you show that with our blocks? Can you combine the 4 and the 7? Good. All right. How many did we say that was?
74. No, 47.
When we combined the 4 and the 7, how many did we end up? How many did you tell me that was? Or you can count it again if you need to.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
11. Good. Just like you said, right? Okay. So then.
And this one,
Uh-huh.
if you put these together,
Yep.
it's going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80.
80, which I see right here, right? I love how
81.
Okay. But is this 1?
No.
No. So we have to do something about that.
Oh.
What's gonna happen with this?
You're gonna set this aside, and then it's going, and then all of these are going to turn into a 1, and this one is going to stay like this, cause it's 80.
Okay.
And then 1.
Okay.
81.
I almost 100% agree with you. There's one little problem. How much is that right there? 10. So we can't just like shoop, poof, they're gone. But we can make a trade. We can take these 10 ones and make a fair trade for a 10.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, right? So this right here is worth this 10. Aren't they the same? Those are just chopped up.
Because these are 10. And this is 10.
Yeah, okay. Would you like to make a trade?
Oh yeah.
Okay, give me 10 ones, please. Okay, here's 1 10. Okay, now it goes back in our sum. Can you put it with our sum? Aha! How much is it now?
91.
Kobe, you got it! Yeah!
What did you notice? What did you wonder? It could be about the teaching moves, or it could be about the math that you were seeing and what he was sharing.
a lot of kids, it's hard for them to do the rollover with the 10s. They tend to forget that.
Yep, that's the mistake we saw. He didn't want to regroup. He just deleted it, right? Good. Thanks, Miss Lacey.
Tracy, we could have put the box over top of the chins.
Yep, exactly. And when I moved forward, there was more after that. I did say, hey, remember Miss Tatum? And that's where that 110 can go. Good point.
I noticed that when you started to use a picture or like some of the manipulatives, that he seemed to get it a lot like quicker, I would say, instead of just talking it out with him.
Yeah, I agree, Miss Marshall. And there was a lot, it was cool how he knew they were worth 10. He knew how to count by 10s. He even, did you notice that he added that extra 10 at the end and he didn't have to recount everything? That was so cool that it was 81 and he was able to just put that other 10 and go 91. So a lot of understanding came by using those tools. Great point.
I noticed, and I had never really thought about it, but it's pretty powerful that he swapped out his 10 ones for the 10. So it kept it cohesive that these were 10s. And it was also that it's the same thing. You've traded it. And that gave him, a kinesthetic way to remember that of carrying it over.
Yeah, I love it. And it was so cool that he knew, he said, this is 10. It's the same. 10 here, 10 here. Yeah, I love that trade language. I've heard a lot of teachers using that this year. Thanks, Miss Gibbons. That's great. All right. If something else comes to you, feel free to stick it in the chat, another notice or wonder. So we're going to try another one this time. I asked a student to solve a problem and I just ended after they solved it. So I want you to take the role of the teacher has asked you, hey, can you help this kid work on counting a collection of coins? So take just a second to think about your favorite way to count this collection of coins, figure out how much it is, and maybe write it down so you can remember what the correct total is. So we're going to watch, it's about 1 minute and 30 seconds of a third grader who is counting this same collection of coins. So they're exactly the same as what you're seeing here. And they make a mistake. And so I want you to be thinking, actually, I'm going to go ahead and show you the questions. I want us to focus on what strengths does the student have? What do they already know? Because there's a lot that they know. And then I want you to put yourself in the shoes of what kind of questions would you ask? What misunderstanding do you identify? And then maybe what you would do next. So be thinking, put yourself in, okay, this is what I saw. What do I know about what they know? And what would I do? Okay, here comes our third grader.
Can you count out loud? Oh, you're sorting first.
Alright, okay. A penny is worth 1 cent. 1 cent. I think about it.
Okay.
This is worth 1 cent. And this is worth 10 cents. And this is worth 25 cents. So 25 and 10. So 25 and 45 and then 25 and another one which is 35, which is 55 and 65 and then 65, 66, 7, 68 and 69. So 69 cents.
Okay, so I know it's really tempting to name their mistake right first, right? You really want to say like, this is what they did, right? But there were some really good things. There were some strengths. So can we name those first? What were the cool things that they did or the correct things that they did?
Did know the amounts of the different coins.
Good.
He sorted the coins out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's a great strategy, right?
He had taken his time touching each individual coin and then saying verbally the amount as he kept going up.
Yeah, good. And he was like repeating it, holding it in his head, which is hard to do. So he wasn't losing where he was. Good. Thanks, Miss Youngbauer.
He caught one mistake and gave himself some time to think it through and do it over again.
Yeah, totally. I loved how he was adding the dimes on the fives, right? Like he was able to go like 45, 55, 65. Adding tens to a 5 number is hard. And then he was able to correctly switch over to counting by ones. Those are some great strengths that he has. Okay, so now we can answer kind of any of these other 3 questions. What misunderstandings did you see? What questions might you ask, or what would you do next?
He did confuse the nickel with the quarters.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else catch that? And he sorted the nickel with the 2 quarters. Yep.
I would have started counting the biggest value first, and then work my way down. But
yeah. Right. So we have to think. That's good, Miss Eggleston. We know as counters of change that's helpful, right? To start with the biggest. So we have to sort of see what could we do to push him in that direction of let's get the big ones done first. That's great.
Go ahead.
That's even if they were taught to do the touch points with the legs
on
each coin.
Yep.
But I probably would have, as he was touching each one and saying the amount, and even when he was like repeating and counting by tens with fives, maybe asked him and clarified and said, how much is that one worth? And then kind of get him to think back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. And maybe revisit that spot of, I think you said this pile was 45. Tell me some more about that. How did you get that at the beginning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. Great. One last thought maybe from anybody? All right. Thanks for sharing your ideas. I think all of those ideas it was clear that you were able to pay close attention to where the misunderstanding was. And then I heard lots of great ideas of what you would do next. All right. So now we're switching gears to think about if you walk into a room and you are just there to assist, and a teacher, it doesn't say, hey, can you step out with this kid and work on this particular thing? If you are just there to assist the whole group. And I'm sharing this because I was telling the teacher what we were going to do, and the teacher said, it could be helpful too if IAs had some ideas about what to do in a class, especially because a lot of people are ending up in classes that they haven't worked with before. So I asked Miss Eggleston, who has been here a long time and has a lot of wisdom and experience, to share with us some things in this area. So Miss Eggleston, if you walk into a room and you're getting ready to go in and just help, and maybe you don't have necessarily been given a plan from the teacher, what are some things that you keep in mind when you walk in?
The first thing, if the teacher is teaching and she's teaching something new, I always observe the teacher. I sit at the table. I don't normally go and sit by a student. With first through second graders, they don't really mind you sitting by them. Third through fifth graders, they're really intimidated by you sitting by them, especially if they're weak at the subject that's being taught or they're listening to. So they're very they really don't like for you to stand over them or sit near them. So I will normally sit at a table and I will observe the teacher while observing the class as well.
And I heard you say that that some yesterday when we were talking about it, that sometimes you even will like jot down some notes.
Jot down notes. Yeah. Each teacher teaches different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's super helpful. I think I would do the same too if I was walking in a bunch of different rooms and they were all kind of labeling things or organizing things a little bit differently. Good. We do have a couple of people who are pretty new to our team. So what would you say to someone who is new? Maybe they're a little hesitant to jump in and help. What would you say to somebody who's brand new to being an instructional assistant?
Someone that's new, well, with all grade levels, you have to keep in mind that they are children. You know, you have to try to acquire that relationship with that child. Regardless, you know, if where their mindset is, you have to acquire that relationship with that child. And you have to make them feel confident in what they do.
I agree. And that relationship part is so important. And when you all get to be in a room more than once, then that'll certainly come. Mm-hmm. You were telling me yesterday that you have worked in a lot of different grade levels. And what are some of the things that you've learned when you compare your upper experience to your lower experience?
Once again, first through second grade, it's a lot of hands-on, whereas third through fifth grade, it's hands-on, but it's not as much. It's a lot of patience with first and second graders, actually sitting there, showing them. As for third through fifth graders, you know, you let them do it and then you assist with them, some of them, that is.
One more thing I heard you say yesterday was like how some of the questions that you ask when you, like if a teacher's teaching or maybe it's independent work, what are some of the questions that you ask when you maybe approach a kid?
Okay. The first thing is, do you need help? That will be the first thing, because then if they don't need the help, someone would say that because they feel intimidated, but I would ask them, do they need the help? Do you understand what you're doing? Do you need my help? Do you need me to show you how to do it? You know, so on and so forth.
Yeah, good. I love that idea of, you know, kind of gauging their interest in even receiving help at that point. That's good. All right. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate hearing from your wisdom and experience. I also asked the teachers yesterday in PLCs, because I told them what we were going to do. And I asked them if they, you know, I asked them basically, what are some things that when an IA walks in your room that you really like? And they named lots of good things that you all already do. And so from the teacher's point of view, actually, I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to let you pause for a minute and read it to yourself. These are the things that teachers said that they loved that you all do. I think it's cool that so many of them match up to what Ms. Eggleston shared, specifically like learning the strategies for the grade level, asking the student questions. And then I loved this one that the teacher said, you know, we want the IAs to come in and ask, how can I support you? So feel free to, if you don't already do that, some of you may probably do that, but if you don't already do that, you know, that interaction is helpful and welcomed from the teachers that shared yesterday. Okay. So one of the questions that came up yesterday when I talked to the teachers about this was, I wish we had a space where we could take kids if a teacher says, can you work on blank with them? And so I asked Kelly and Lori, like, what are the spaces that people are allowed to take a kid to work with on something? So these were the ones that they shared. The balcony, there's at least one table up there. There's a tiny little room near Miss Kennedy's, like a closet really, beside the gym and in the corner where Miss Kennedy is. The library, you can go in the cafeteria if it's not violin happening, which I think is Mondays and Thursdays usually, at least. The library courtyard, like, so right next to the elevator, there's a door and you can be outside working on those tables. That's an awesome place to work. And then the back of the auditorium and the stage may or not be quite ready, but can eventually be a good spot if you want to pull a kid. So this is something that I just wanted you to have this list. This is a list of questions that from a professional development that I did a while ago. But other questions besides just, can you show me can you solve one of these problems? These are some other sort of getting started kinds of questions. And in a minute, I will try to help. I have this idea that if you have a phone and that can scan a QR code, we can scan it and get it on our phones. I'm not sure it's going to work. So we'll save that if we have time at the very end. So we'll come back to that. And then I have put some growth mindset language, like this would be a list of if kids are like, oh, this, I'm bad at this, or this sucks, or, I'm crappy at math. These are some sort of things to say back to them to build there. So we're going to come back to this piece right here in a minute. I just want to, we do have a little bit of time for questions. So I just want to give you an opportunity. Is there anybody who has any, either maybe advice or some questions that you want to share when it comes to helping kids with math one-on-one or in the classroom?
The only thing I would say is that when you're working with kids going to any grade, you just have to remember they all do learn differently, and they may not all actually be on the same level as everybody else in their class.
That's a great point, Miss Lacey. Thank you.
I have a question about kids in the classroom who, the first thing they do is they ask for help, but they haven't shown the work. Like, I'm talking about like the older kids. Sometimes they ask for help, but they don't really need it. So what would you say to a kid who hasn't really shown the work, but they just ask for help immediately?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've been there for sure. So I would at first say, sure, I'm happy to help you. Show me let me watch you get started. Let me see what you get started, and then I'll jump in when we get stuck. Or, going back to some of those questions, like looking back here of, what do you already know? I love this one. What do you already know that you can tell me? What do you, even just read the question to me out loud. And then I think you can look for spots where you get them started, because a whole lot of that is either about they want adult attention, right? Or a lack of confidence. That's probably why if someone's asking and they don't actually need it, it's one of those two. I like to say, okay, you've got a great start. I want you to do that next step, and then I'll come back and check on you. And basically just leave them working on one little step and then walk away. And then sometimes they will just keep on going once you've given them a little push to get started. And then if you get time, make sure that you circle back to them. But I think that I would make sure that I would help when first asked, and then just kind of try to pull back as you've given them some help. That's a great question. Yeah. Anybody else?
Kind of like to sideline on that question. I've noticed that first then statements help really well, especially with students who just immediately want your help. It's kind of like, you're reinforcing them asking, and then also once they do try, then they know that you will be there to back them up and help them out. Yeah.
So you said first and then, right? Is that how you're saying it?
Yeah, first then statements. So basically, if they ask, can you help me with this? You just say, okay, first I want you to try it out, and then I can help you.
Ooh, I love that.
They can kind of visualize kind of how the events will happen. And a lot of them respond pretty well to that.
Great. That's super helpful language. Thanks, Miranda. Yeah, I could see it be first I'd like for you to, you do the first, or no. First, I want you to do the first step and then I'll help you with the second step or something like that. Good call. All right. I want to do this. I want to end by saying that you are awesome. The work that you do is hard. I appreciate you. We all appreciate you. The teachers appreciate you. And I am here for the kids. I'm here for the teachers, but I'm also here for you. And so if you get to a spot where you're like, I don't know what to do about this, teaching question, or it was 20 years ago when I learned this math. Can you help me learn the math? Yes. Like I hope that you see me as a safe space, and I am not going to judge anybody for anything that you don't know. I'm here to help you. So if you, and I've had a couple of IAs really reach out this year and say, advocate for a student or ask a math question. I love it. That's what I love to do. So please, do come and ask me, and I'm happy to help.